Good afternoon, everybody. This is the public forum for today's meeting. Mr. Neville Fredericks has asked to speak on item 8.4, Strategic Outcomes Works Program Update. Mr. Fredericks, look, I don't enforce the time limit, so you're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Council members, the reason I wanted to speak today is that in relation to the report dealing with the Bowral South living area, I wanted to give encouragement to Council on the path that they're taking. I think it's, having been involved in the arena of development of compact new townships with more diverse housing choice, etc. in the past, and having some experience in this area, it's a difficult arena for most councils to tackle because it's quite different to the path that's been followed before, and many of the regulatory bodies have had a very heavy investment in the regulatory structure so far. And the path that's being taken, I think, is very visionary and necessary. And I'm very encouraged by the approach that Council was taking, and I wanted to come and keep you enthusiastic and keep your staff enthusiastic. Whenever there is change, there is often pushback, and most of the pushback will come probably from lack of knowledge, when people don't understand, have a clear understanding of their choices. As the old saying is, first understanding, then adjustment. And I wanted to deal with that just briefly on the public engagement side. Some of the work that I've read recently by a fellow called Professor Les Stein, who is a world expert in planning systems, and he looked at 80 jurisdictions around the world. He was on ABC television recently, and I've just secured his new release of his book. He said the New South Wales planning system is the worst of those 80. He looked in Europe, North America, South America, Pacific, South Asia, and across Australia. New South Wales is the worst. It's the most confusing. There's endless public engagement, and in the end, the public don't feel quite as though they've been engaged with properly. The definitions about what is sustainability vary from mind to mind because there's no clear and precise definition of what sustainability is. The citizen thinks no change in my street is sustainability. The environmentalist said no greenfield development and keep the bush. And the businessman says I want my business to keep trading profitably. And they're all sustainable issues in the mind of each of those people. And they don't necessarily come together. I want to encourage Council to consider comprehensive engagement with the community up front during the master plan phase, because once the zoning takes place, essentially the horse is bolted. And although there may be objections from the public or even the council at that time, they go to court and the rules will be followed. If it's zoned and there's compliance, it will be approved. So I think the challenge in this arena, from my own experience, is nailing down, once you complete the master plan, is nailing down the landowner developers to the master plan and nailing them down to the commitments that you might have negotiated with them prior to zoning. I served on a committee in Wollongong City Council for 2 years. We worked on a Yellow Marshall Mount precinct for a new township of 10,000 people, and we met every month working with senior staff in the Department of Planning. We finally got the zoning through, and it was quite set for all best practice in terms of density near the centre and some height near the centre, walkability, all those principles that everyone's championing at the moment. But there was no supporting DCP that had any teeth, and there was no master plan up front on the road layouts and where everything had to go. And so the net effect of all of this is a wasted opportunity. As people come in from the outside, the culture of the development industry is more of the same, please, and all of their consultants are going to be pursuing the same. So in this arena that you've embarked on, turning up the dial on design is the essence, and controlling and being able to mandate the commitments that you may have negotiated with the landowners. Now, that's the arena that I just make a comment on, and for your consideration, Mr. Administrator.
Thanks very much for that. It's important that in this strategic stage that the council's at now, that we do it in step with the community and the landowners and developers, so that it's open and transparent and people know what they're buying before they start.
Yes.
And I think that hasn't happened, not only in Wingecarribee, but in many areas. And you learn from your mistakes. My view is that planning can be a little bit like musical chairs occasionally. And if you want to stick around, there's a late item coming onto the business papers, which is alarming in relation to potential zonings in the Shire. I'm not saying they're outside of our housing strategy, but they appear they could be. So if you can't stay, I think it'd be on the website already, the late report, which is a matter of concern, and I take my hat off to the General Manager and her executive team for standing up to the Department of Planning.
Wonderful.
So we want to work with them,
Yes.
but we want them to work with us too, and the community that we're serving. So thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you, Council.
The meeting doesn't start until 3:30, so we'll just have to bide our time until then.